After my undercover report on the front line of the health industry was completed, I got to it. As my GP recommended, I spoke with a woman named Bushra who worked for Health in Mind. Before the spiritual state of my long game was revealed towards global harmony, I needed to be given the all clear by a mental health professional. Before I fixed everything, a witness was needed to experience the calm and balanced state of my spirit. Outside of her profession, Bushra was a woman of spiritual intelligence that saw beyond the culture and traditions of the Angel Isle. We spoke in depth for over an hour as Bushra remotely felt the purity of my timeless energy. Inside of a lack of comprehension because of years of toxicity within a culture of fear, senior management at work could not see me in front of their faces. Disgust was the constant emotional and psychological harassment that bordered on the lines of overt persecution and oppression. No part of a blinded authority wanted to look at their relentless and negative behavior. Bushra said it was non-comprehension of information by cultural differences that allowed clear issues of heightened trauma to remain unresolved. The simplicity of the issue was conveyed to Bushra. Once she asked me, I revealed to her the author of my faith, then explained and said, "Once my faith as a simple Jamaican is realized, everything changes. My faith in life is based on the kingdom of the soul. In light of all the mindfulness techniques the company promotes, this knowledge is outside of their remit towards spirit. Because of this, they do not know the power of love and sell a shadow and a copy of what they do not understand. To approach them with what they do not know and fear is utterly rejected by them. They place the discernment of low intelligence over what they fail to grasp. If I had asked them to describe anything about the soul, I am certain they could not have answered with any reason, logic, or intelligence. The health industry I worked in that was led by a pseudo-religious political government did not recognize nor provide for the health of the soul. Within the world of health professionals in line with government protocols, the health of every soul was at the bottom of a list that did not exist. My natural language of the soul is above the light line which is forever within. The reality of endless life was a place unconsidered by the guidelines of secular tradition. I did not say at the time to Bushra that the kingdom of the soul has no earthly throne because its king is not a man. I kept the knowledge behind the bars of my mouth that said the king cannot be seen unless seen with the eyes of the soul, because the kingdom of the heavenly king is in the soul. I did not place it on the air that every soul is a kingdom. I could have said with words out of abject simplicity that there is a king for everyone, and that the king is love. Then as now, I could have said when this king becomes the greatest power in life, it is the Christ, and so Christ is king. And everyone may have this Christ dwell in his or her soul, just how Christ dwells in the soul of Jesus, just how Christ dwells on the throne in the soul of one love nation. My time in the shadow of the Luciferian intellect, which guided the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics, was done. Every move made at work before I retired got me into trouble. I sent an email to the clinical lead of the company and explained how his simple explanations to health and well-being lit up my mind like a Christmas tree. I got to it with him and guided my chat towards a reasoned discourse from soul level, towards the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics at the head of the health industry. I said to him, at the last seminar, we had Dr. Allen, who was first class. You have joined an exclusive club. Because of the enjoyable seminar, I asked permission to speak as a Jamaican. I said to the company's clinical lead about his seminar, "There were so many points you made that evoked a response from the level of soul. From that depth, I ask your permission first, if it is okay that we speak in private regards the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics at the head of the health industry. Because of the information you gave and the spirit that I felt from you, would it be cool if I spoke as a natural-born Jamaican with you?" He responded to me and thanked me for my kind words. He said he worked part-time and only had time for clinical questions. My kind words to the clinical lead landed me on a charge. My niece's boyfriend played for Brighton and Hove Albion for years until his release. A friend told me that she was worried about her son and his nerves about playing in the youth tournament at Wimbledon. I mentioned both instances to Dr. Allen, and he kindly volunteered his services for free to help both of them. Alan became my brother for life since we met at a work seminar. My experience with the company's clinical lead was the opposite of my experience with Alan. The forked tongue needed to send me thanks for all my kind words, then to place me on a charge needed to be dealt with. People at the head of the service had no idea of how to engage within positive human behavior. They needed to be informed within a soul manner where not even death was any form of escape. Within my professional life, there were a series of holistic questions placed to the heads of service who knew me personally in East Sussex, Surrey and Brighton. Before the matter of soul was brought into the open, behind closed doors along with the GP who was clinical lead for the service I work for, they were asked, how does one begin the journey into expanded consciousness? Once there, how does one hold on to and digest the insights that are revealed? Outside of the purpose and design of reality, is there a first step on the philosophical adventure of this lifetime? Does the route to personal purification have to be known or need to be known before the beginning of the journey? How much time is given to the deep time needed to be connected to the soul? Is it possible to stand on the outside of the reincarnation and karma of the collective mind? Out of the ocean of deep suffering, how does the healing of the collective psyche begin into the progressive unfoldment of reality? And seriously, how does the Luciferian intellect begin to move through the surrender which brings peace? Because if he could, wouldn't the Luciferian intellect stop itself from being the instruments and perennial coefficient of sanctity? From his position when he was placed above the world, I watched as D3's every motion answered every question. To esoteric questions they feared and dared not approach, it was not so from the combined heads of service and the company's clinical lead. They would have thought me rude to suggest with my cheeky Scottish Jamaican self that Bushra's talents and skills would have helped them no end. To ignore my words, senior management at work believed was their power. I allowed them to fester under their illusion until I revealed my true power. Once exposed to new knowledge, how easy or hard was it for senior management to place stability of purpose of the soul uppermost in their minds? They had to own the fact that responsibility and obedience to the negative routine they set was the bar they set for themselves. Every spring into negative action was done by their collective will of intransigence. I suggested to them to be active, positive, and dynamic in thought towards Rastafari. I also suggested a purification and regulation of every desire towards a new goal. They were told that a reformative movement had to begin in the heart and mind before it was driven by the spirit of their will. They were told once those internal processes were engaged, mountains within the self would move and they would be their own witnesses. In order for them to move forward in life, there had to be a point where the collection of professional information through life had to stop. A conscious decision based on logic and reason needed to be delivered into turning a gigantic leap in life into one small step. That small step had to be turned into a sure technique and repeated to develop positive new habits. How long it took the individuals within the senior management structure to realize the nobility of their own invisible characters was up to the individual alone. Unknown to senior management, the managing director of the company was told I was in the world to raise the dead. Tim was cool with it. If I did not mean every word from my soul that I said about my heart, mind, and spirit to Tim, I would have been the cruelest person in the world. I said to the man, the kind of priest I am means I am here to enlighten no one. It is stated that I am a royal priest in the order of Melchizedek. I confirm as a priest wearing the twin crown that my genealogy has no beginning and no ending. I confirm there is no power in existence that can disrupt my divine connection to the Ancient of Days. I have one purpose in life as a royal priest. It is not about getting mad with the monarchy. It is not about getting even with the government. And it is certainly not about getting everything from a church which possesses nothing. I am here to raise the dead. I'm here to kill the lie of death as it lives through people. Dead hopes, dead virtues, and dead aspirations will soar out of their graves of ignorance. I said to Tim, from me, this is the last call for heaven. I plan to speak with power to the crestfallen, those embittered, the unhappy, the disenchanted, the disillusioned, the disappointed, the disheartened, the dissatisfied, and all those who have been let down. Tim broke them all for me with bosses. He was a stellar boss and friend to me every time we interacted. I spoke with Tim unvarnished. The most swear words were used to explain the reality I had lived. The point behind the language was understood by him. The understanding of the man at the top was not within the people who worked for him. That became a problem when I was had up on more charges, when management said I said something nice to a colleague. To speak from this day about words said in the past revealed the caliber of man I spoke to in the past. Long before One Love Nation entered the awareness of the world, I gave Tim a heads up. I said to him, first of all, you and I must stop apologising to each other. I said to Carliani, there's no one on the planet that I could have spoken with how I spoke with you. Thank Grandad for your light heart and sense of humour. That must have come from spending time in the wilds of Birmingham. Respect for the feedback on the tune. Because I am her harshest critic, your words put a smile on Carliani's face to hear her work complimented. Carliani believes my autistic ears are tyrannical because they can hear the absolute simplicity in the notes of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And how brilliant for you to have a child who has your love for music and football. I lost myself within a trance of both my favourite disciplines to have no desire to find my way back from those dizzying heights. In the same way as you and Jesse, I had a connection with my dad as long as I was into the villa along with Elvis and Mario Lanza. In comparison, Jesse being into Oasis is very cool. By the way, I've heard Dave's music. So we both know what does not need to be said on that score, if you heard his intro into yesterday's webinar. Second of all, mate, to take away all stress. I write very quickly, so it must have taken the space of half an hour to write what you read. Maybe an hour if I was tired. So don't sweat it that my words take longer to read than to write. Truth is, I've written loads of things that I have yet to read and comprehend. Third of all, wow, Tim, that your head is still on your shoulders and you are walking around as normal is testament to what I was told about you. Usually, when I move from zero to celestial, people experience a confusion of the planes. I like the way you take it in your stride that it is no problem that the elegant order is back in business. Here is an insight to your unseen energy behind the scenes that I transport to people. Because I speak in a certain way about you, people believe you are holy. My clients believe you are because I have tested your essence out on them. It is the care for people in the heart and in the mind that is important for me to perceive. My clients have their suspicions about my words and how I perform my professional task in a spiritual manner. I tell them if someone else were at the head of the company, my spiritual involvement would shift accordingly. Knowledge of your spirit has brought a consistency and depth to how I have interacted with so many. I tell my clients the truth, that this heart for the job I do comes from you. You made me laugh because I fully empathize with you regards the imposter syndrome and still managing to cling on. I believe deep feelings of unworthiness happens with people who suffer from no airs and graces who are naturally humble. I've thought it through with you being in a certain position of authority. If you were at the head of the same outgoing government, this country would have shone like a beacon across a darkened world. Sadly, up to the point that I ended my studies on souls in authority, genuine care for people are found to be a rare quality. Tim, you are right. This is not a retirement for me. It is a new beginning. And in my new beginning, I have a sneaking feeling that many are going to benefit from my positive experience of working for your company, even if there was a single wart over the best part of it. I can easily cover that with makeup so that the beauty of the incident is the only thing that is ever seen. For what you have given me outside of your knowledge, I return to you spiritually from inside of my knowledge. Thanks for allowing me the peace to speak to you from a quiet heart of total calm and total peace. As you may imagine, normal is not what it seems, nor is it otherwise. To me, my dad was a bit of a Buddha without the tummy. It was he who gave me insight into those words when I could not understand myself. Without naming you, Tim, this is the intro to a near future post over social media to tell my friends what I have told you. What they do not know is this response to your reply informing me of my new beginning. This moment of quality time I have in thought between us, where time does not exist, is where I get to breathe. I've been wearing a mask and hiding inside myself long before it became compulsory to look like a bandit while doing the shopping. When my account was in six figures, I would have been shot for sure wearing a mask going into a bank and asking for my own money in the 1990s. A bank clerk once told me I didn't look old enough to have so much money. She asked if I was over 14. I was 39 at the time. This is the soon-to-be-released intro that is fit for public consumption, which reveals the true state of this collective play. The whole piece will detail how I stop hiding inside myself to project my invisible insides unvarnished. Where was I going to find a company that would let me work 3 days a week when job security and emotional stability for life was exposed as the lie it always was? Where was the company that would afford me the luxury of living in a 3-bedroom penthouse overlooking the sea where the psychological vision to view past the horizon could be engaged. Where would I find the company to pay me enough to afford to be able to travel, to see friends and relatives in far-off lands and at home? Where would I find the company that would allow 3 hours a day of unbroken thought to think my way out of the hell of what I saw within the beauty of the evenings and mornings? Where was the company that would provide quality time to chart my way out of the hell of my making onto the divine path that is forever my birthright? Now that the man at the head of the company has allowed me to be able to listen to the soundless sound of my voiceless voice within a space of quality silence, I can see my life. I can feel my dreams. They are all here. This means I am now. There will never be another time like this. As an 11-year-old who thought he knew it all, I said to my dad, "Say something that makes sense to you, that I cannot understand." Dad thought about it for a minute, then said, "Everything is exactly how you see it. You just have to decide what it is that you see. And because everything is exactly how you see it, nothing that you see within can be seen by me, even if you were to describe it poetically. And although you do not yet understand this, son, everything that you feel, I am already, and more. Because from the point of view of any other, nothing is as it seems, nor is it otherwise." I said to Dad, "Now I'm going out to play football." I'll send you the rest of the piece, which explains the near future after it has been posted. Anyway, mate, it is my goal to make your life easier than you have made mine. Now that my insights and direction of life are known to you, there is only one more thing I need to say. I've chosen you as my Pope. To tell the truth, I don't even like the word Pope, as I'm a lapsed Catholic. I've chosen you as my emissary, Tim. This means no one else has the authority to speak with power on my behalf, because all that you say of me will be your gospel to the world. The job of being an emissary of heaven is as simple as this. The outgoing authority, according to the royal law and the golden rule, tells you how well things are going in the quest to look after everyone, and you tell them well done as it is being done, as they give you no backchat. If anyone gives you the 2 shilling, that's where I come in. No one has the power or cheek to speak against you or your heavenly authority, because that would provoke me to annoyance. I'd love to catch up in person, mate. Since I've told Carliani we'd be in Jamaica by the end of the year, I need to focus on what needs to be said in the post to make this happen. I'm on the clock to ensure the smooth transition of consciousness into where it needs to be. So, in my spare time, which will soon be full time, I need to get on with it. Big love to you and your family, Tim. Your understanding within this extreme time for us all is appreciated good and proper. I was spiritually transparent with Tim. I gave an insight into the inevitable in reaction to the essence of the friend he had always been to me out of nothing. I told Tim that change throughout history always occurred when the need became overwhelming. I said to him, to walk within our sovereign nature, Carliani and me have made a stand within ourselves to leave fear behind. The reason for our lives is to be present within this very moment for ourselves and for the reality we inhabit. Our reason for stepping into the light to come out of hiding is to do justice to love and mercy. This is my notice of retirement from the world of work into the eternal kingdom of the soul. What the uninformed believe to be physical, secular, and temporal was in reality spiritual, absolute, and eternal. The foolish in heart waited for graveyards around the world to crack open and for dead bones to walk. Dead hopes, dead virtues, and dead aspirations came out of dark graves of ignorance once chained by the grand illusion. One loved nation presented a global harmony that could not be ignored. Understanding of all that had passed, a prophetic fulfillment was recorded to be replayed across the world. People who touched our hearts were real. The signs and wonders that acted as our heralds on significant days happened as predicted. I said to my head of service within a private communication that I sent to loads of people, I informed you that I was going to speak about my retirement when I returned from Birmingham. Mate, I have a serious condition, so I need this to be official. If my condition is not treated promptly, I will not last much longer. Tim and Emma already know about my real job that I'm retiring into, so this should be no surprise to them and should be no surprise to you. I spoke to Tim in my bespoke way that I'm up for retirement. I do not know if he has shared the information with you, as he has a lot on his plate. As an employee, I've logged and captured how my observations and feedback since the first lockdown have been consistently ignored. In my eyes, Boss Sarah has no fault. Neither has anyone else in the company in proximity to me for that matter. Boss Sarah was honest when she said to me that my questions are beyond her wisdom to answer. It takes courage to express degrees of truth to those the professional world places beneath others. It's Jamaica for me and my wife, and we need it to happen before the year is out. So, the serious nature of my words are not to be ignored or dismissed this time around. All the pieces in the great game of my life are in position. I've analysed the intelligence of the world into the first 2 decades of the 21st century, and my studies are at an end. I watched the Prime Minister's address to the Confederation of British Industry. Within a muddle, it appeared that his moral compass engaged when he said "forgive me" 3 times. In my heart I had tears for him and for all who judged him and for those who encouraged him. My wife sang one of her songs in response to the Prime Minister to take away the pain I felt from perceiving what he experienced emotionally and psychologically. A colleague put up a social media post about the World Health Organization. Had he said health is not merely the absence of disease or infirmity, health is the state of complete mental, social, and physical well-being. My colleague's nephew needed life-saving medicine that was put in jeopardy by Brexit. I had a laugh and kicked a pseudo-religious politician in the pussy so hard metaphorically that the government removed proof of the email from my account, which concerned the life of a child. No doubt from my words, pseudo-religious politicians took me as an uppity black person with an afro who used to be a Catholic. And they say never judge a book by its cover. Despite all the laws of equality there are, here is my problem within the equality of the laws of the land towards me and my holistic well-being. To their shame, I'd already given the government the answers to life for everyone to come into this world. And after avoiding the issue by playing with the truth, they handed themselves over to me. I used simple words and a light-hearted manner to tell the government how to fix everything for everyone. It was the manner of dismissal of the answers which confirmed the thoughts and inclinations to me of the black heart of their influence. I suspected my words against the spiritual deficiency and moral bankruptcy that existed within government, which must have made Lucifer proud, would not be welcomed. So, the appropriate measures were taken before their connection with my communication. Before I officially retired from the world, I needed my employer as a referee to tell the government the plans they had to adhere to. This was for the transition out of darkness into the golden age, which accompanied my movement into the kingdom of the soul. The government needed to be calm and to follow clear instruction. As quietly and as calmly as possible, they were to carry on as normal. While this was played out, they needed to shut it all down behind the scenes while they catered for every one of the great British public of many immigrants at the same time. If I had to tell the government face to face, out of the storm from my ocean of words, none of them would have found safe harbour. According to the standards I hold of the royal law and the golden rule, it was never good for anyone in government. It did not matter if the allegations of governmental mismanagement were true. No one had the bollocks to tell the Prime Minister to answer any questions about it in a way to bring public satisfaction and the appropriate jail time. After I thought it through and saw the answers to it all, I told my line manager within an email what the government should have done with me as an individual. The advice was ignored and unacknowledged. I said to my head of service, "As a mate, walk with me on this one, Dave. Me and you walked through London past legions of the homeless to the Holiday Inn at Regent's Park. In Birmingham, a friend who is a professor told me that the screams of the homeless as they were being taken off the streets and murdered haunted him so much that he was sectioned. In view of that background, say in 39 words you gave the government the answers to lasting peace via the panacea to end all suffering. Say to retain the status quo, the government removed all evidence of the email. Would you kick the government in the pussy in public for being naughty behind closed doors? Or would you reveal to the great British public of many immigrants your prepared miracles that put the government out of business legally within a spiritual fashion? If there is doubt about the life of my soul, that doubt should step forward now and witness a claret and blue thunderbolt within that will remove any field of ignorance. Tell the government to speak with Tim if they need to inquire and confirm the frame of mind I permanently occupy, to know why the simple answers to life appear so easily. My sole concern before retirement is what I do to end the direct mismanagement of a life. There must be a new priority. The government are to carry on as normal and say nothing about me until my wife and I are settled in Jamaica. Once in position and set up properly, the planet will be entertained by my wife and I and re-educated through the glad light of joy and happiness. The grand illusion will be explained away in a way only a royal priest could suggest. That's it really, mate. Everything else will come out in a wash that I've already prepared from an exact design. I know I'm an intrusion into the mind on a profound level, yet Dave, you know me from your level. We speak the same internal language despite our Brummy accents. If men like us lose it, everyone is... No one has twigged it yet that I am brilliant at apologizing when I am in the right. When I am right and am apologizing for that right, the words take on a life of their own as the invisible weave constructed flows through the darkness of where they need to go. The weight loss football league I was involved with will not acknowledge the fact, after they demanded an apology from me, that the customer consistently brought to their attention was a thug on the field of play. Open a line through company management from the government to me so all is officially logged and captured. There are no thugs on the field of playing the game of my life in real life, so I believe no apology is necessary from me for this present brought to government's attention. If there is one person in government who adheres to the energy of a thug now that I have spoken, let him stand within my space of non-judgment so that I can see the colour of his heart. Please, tell them silence will not be used to exercise a deliberate ignorance of mine from any involved. Please, tell the government they are not to seek to provoke me to annoyance on any level. With high importance and gentle encouragement, tell the government to make it happen in Jamaica before the year is out. And please, tell them it is absolutely the wrong time to start reading the Bible. To those frontline workers within the National Health Service who received a round of applause, heaven was bang on side with all of them. For the considerable and consistent emotional and psychological efforts of those workers, heaven made up for their lack of financial reward. In the hospital, my blue hair stunned all who saw, and then they smiled at the coolness of it. My life on every level needed to be dealt with. I needed to be on the mountain to draw every moment of infinity into my present. In those days, at the end of his day, at the end of the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics, the ruler of it all had already been judged. If I gave the world his human name, Lucifer would have sprinted like an Olympic athlete away from his own face and far from the sound of his voice. The world could have asked him to his face about the endless power held about him by the one who owned the sound of his voice. Just between me and the Dark One, I allowed him to shit himself openly in secret. When the time arrived, it was said to me, "You are too nice to leave. I miss you already, and you are not even gone." Those were the words that rang around the centre of my soul from a musical member of staff named G as I prepared to leave the Conquest Hospital for Christmas. Me and G spoke intensely about music. G trained the great Remy Vibesman into the medical profession. Remy was the uncle of one of my professional colleagues named Lauren. My hospital experience was as good as the experience I had when I was in prison. My deep experiences of internal life revealed that all life needed to change on the outside. On my last day at the Conquest Hospital, I woke up towards Christmas within a band of brothers formed out of real life. The spirit of life placed us together, and all have witnessed that time and eternity could not separate us. From a man I had already spoken to through a magazine published by Sir Montague Bassoon MP3, I listened intently to a speech that Christmas of 2023. There was talk of the one home of the natural world that we all shared. In my walk around the world as a divine musician, I saw what was divided up and tucked off by those who within their hearts did not share. I listened to talk about honouring the whole of creation, which was said to be a manifestation of the divine. It was a belief not shared by those who use bombs and bullets to bring peace, as any child blown to bits would have had the sensible realize. The golden rule was quoted as people were treated like shit. What would he have done if people did unto him as he had done unto my people humanity? As he forced his sick words to affect the healthy, it was clear those like him, who could not hear themselves, would never hear me. Not for the delight of others, his sounds of inner turmoil were placed onto the air. He combined and regurgitated words of heartfelt information with no heart and with no care. The reason and purpose for this he believed could not be seen within every single word. To watch films of himself to see his internal error was of no use to him. He could not make a quantum shift out of the vibration that chained himself, and like a naughty demonic preschooler, he refused to listen to a spiritual virtuoso. In those days, I could see the shape of a mind by merely listening to the sound of a footstep as a person walked. People covered in fear wondered at the end of days who was good enough to hang out in the presence of one loved nation. The morning of the day after Boxing Day at that remarkable Christmas of 2023 was spent in the presence of a young king. The boy possessed the wisdom of an 80-year-old sage. The king was 17 years old and clearly saw through the grand illusion that was a mask around the beautiful game. I had known him since he was 5 years old and loved the man that approached the glorious world I presented. Although the magician on show was a hot ticket at my last marriage in the world, the young king was the star performer at our third wedding. After Manchester United overcame a 2-goal Boxing Day deficit, I noted Premier League legend Alan Shearer's comments on Aston Villa. In a world of saints and sinners, Alan Shearer was acquainted with two great friends of mine. One man was a bishop of Hexham and Newcastle until his untimely death. The other was a successful international businessman at the top of life who escaped into reality once the bottom of life presented itself into his awareness. Football and music joined me to both men in a way which was entirely celestial. Before he was announced as a bishop by John Paul II, Archie lived next door to Villa Park in Aston. The retired businessman played in the same team as Aston Villa's 1982 European Cup winning hero Tony Morley and a host of famous players in Hong Kong back in the mid-80s. Any time they put Alan Shearer next to St. Peter whenever Peter headlined any football event, I always said to Peter, "Tell Alan Shearer that you know me." After he flew in from Hong Kong, Carliani, Peter and me had a great lunch and afternoon at Wagamama's in Crawley. We picked Peter up from Three Bridges after he made his way down from Gatwick. After lunch, we had a catch-up as we drove Peter to his apartment in Brighton. It was so good for me to chat and breathe easy with a like-minded friend. Because of Peter, Arsenal were my 5th favourite team behind Aston Villa, Aston Villa Reserves, Hastings United and Brazil. In 2023, Pelé was remembered in lights through the statue of Christ the Redeemer. In the football heavens, the least in my kingdom had more than the skills of Pelé. It was normal for me with Peter to speak openly about my grandfather. Peter travelled around the football world and helped a host of those who needed assistance. So many women and children benefited from his endless love that the essence of Peter's vibe will never be forgotten. The great British public of many immigrants within a multi-ethnic, multicultural society was run by races of all colours and types. What choice did I have when all around me all along was madness? How long was I expected to politely ignore the stain madness brought to my esoteric sensibilities within every stench of its stale breath? How long was I supposed to log and capture my every thought to systematically record for unvarnished critical analysis? How long was the simplicity of the life that I knew as a child to be placed into a box in order to cause all others to experience a false sense of vacuous life? How long was I to hide away inside myself, to cause the negativity around me to believe it was safe to carry on within willful ignorance? The energy of 7 seconds and a baseball bat combined with the sharpness of my tongue was all that was needed to remove any Luciferian illusion forever from my presence. For all of my life, I played spiritually small on purpose. I practiced consistently how to be humble for the reason of being able to speak freely when Grandad told me to open my mouth. Through single-mindedness, I did not appear to anyone as religious, holy, saintly, pious, devout, hallowed, sanctified, blessed, or consecrated. And yet, within my great silence, I was all of those things. I resolved to be expressive, open, demonstrative, responsive, passionate, spiritual, mystical, unworldly, otherworldly, psychic, and transcendental with everyone without saying I was. Clothed in humility, no one within pseudo-religious political authority listened to a word of common sense I had said to them. So what was I to do? To keep me balanced, I focused on football. The best football team on the Angel Island in all the world had a birthday gift waiting for me on my 66th birthday, which I thought was cool. They gave me an exclusive birthday discount of £10 off at their official online shop. As a birthday present, I did not think that was so cool. A granddad of a cousin twice removed managed Manchester City back in the day. The club played 66 games in a calendar year and won 5 trophies, which was nothing short of sensational. There were those who suspected Manchester City's success was all down to the extraordinary human being named Jack Grealish. Some said it was because of the magic he took with him from Aston Villa. I said Jack deserved his moment in history as the first £100 million footballer in the promised land of the Premier League. His sale to Manchester City ensured the future of his boyhood club. Aston Villa not falling foul of financial fair play rules was strictly down to Jack's talents. After being assaulted from behind by a Birmingham City supporter who ran onto the pitch, the football heavens was impressed with Jack's conduct and reaction within that moment. All through the year 2023, the pseudo-religious political chaos of 2022 shone through. There were resignations, emergency legislations, and a giant sword at the coronation that could not be seen by human sensibilities. My undercover surveys on immigration and the National Health Service were compared to the promises made by the fallen government and their opposition. As more promises and laws against my people's humanity were made, pseudo-religious political stability in 2023 was nowhere to be seen. On the football front, Gary Lineker received a suspension when he spoke his mind on an issue he thought to be immeasurably cruel. In the face of unlawful deportations, pro-Palestinian demonstrations were called hate marches by the foolish in heart. When the souls of all on the Angel Isle needed leadership, there were images of chaos at the heart of the fallen government. Party pilgrims arrived in their droves at Parliament and partied hard behind closed doors, and despite how many investigations, the rumours of fantastic parties would not go away. Those who abuse souls with professional rules use the professional rules of pseudo-religious politics to hide from themselves. As a health professional at peer reflection sessions, my faith was lived in the open within a workspace of alleged non-judgment. Within their safe space, the Lord I followed was hidden from no one. Endless volumes of supernatural wisdom was delivered within those peer reflection sessions. My words were spat back into my face by an invigilator to destroy my credibility. And yet I perceived the warmth generated within others who could feel my words across the distance from my home into their hearts. In my face, people who had no care for the feelings of others trampled without knowledge over my eternal faith. The endless love of my grandfather was denied. Professional people pretended that the truth was wrong and that they were correcting their lies through life. In defense of the fallen, the most wretched soul that ever walked in the world was of more value than what is contained within the periodic table of elements. This knowledge was unknown at the time to the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics. If they had known, they would not have placed their souls in danger of the second death. Before I left the world until my return at this time, fair warning was given to the foolish in heart. This was the advice I left for pseudo-religious politicians who needed to know what it was like within the journey to seek to master the mind. I said, beware a mind beyond the control of its master. Beware of the mind with no reins. Beware of a pseudo-religious political self unaware of the divine nature of itself. Because such a mind would touch every frequency, every vibration, and every energy of life, then pose as an expert out of ignorance to deliver deceptive comment. Be wary of the pseudo-religious political mind out of control and comprehend that which sought to destroy the great silence. There was a constant degeneration of any mind from any pseudo-religious politician who could not control themselves. An unvarnished listen without prejudice revealed that the signs of psychosis were forever apparent within their every word of insincerity. An imagined disconnection from the soul was the disease that was always cured by conscious reconnection to the vital life force. The endless haphazardness of speech on the outside was an indication of the silent rage within a self-inflicted state of unworthiness. To perceive the source of every sound gave rise to an indication of the drama of illusion that caused the turmoil deep inside. The truth is that the tool that the mind is of magnificence into never-ending. An unprogrammed pseudo-religious political mind absorbed all information without filter. Words carelessly spoken by the blind into the path of the learned were always a clear representation of deception. Every individual needed to be disciplined before the collective mind could be mastered. Otherwise, the individual mind was always open to deception from the negative entropic intelligence. By the dulled spirit, the pseudo-religious political heart was incapable of vigilant introspection. Constant degeneration led to the erosion of moral boundaries within spiritual truths as the pseudo-religious political self formed itself into the architect of its own trickery. A lack of control left no pause for breath or for the opinion of any other from a heart that caused the heart to lie to itself. A distorted perception of reality was projected into the shared reality with no eloquent assurance towards the absolute and eternal. The feeling of accomplishment within an abundance of material possessions clouded the judgment into a lost focus which promoted the normalization of greed. An uncontrolled pseudo-religious political mind in connection with a loose tongue spread knowledge that was quickly stolen and rapidly passed on as experience to be believed. The more words said that were disconnected from each other, the more the vacuum needed to be filled with the silence of celestial positivity. To begin to master the pseudo-religious political mind was first to embrace the great silence. The need to be psychic first within every facet of the basic emotions of the human condition through a stillness of the tongue was paramount. Once I had mastered myself, there was no need for me to master my mind. The process was automatic. Apart from the positioning of the galactic center of the multiverse, spectacular displays of celestial power are kept far from the world. So that the human heart did not melt, my focus was always to point the attention within to what is absolute and eternal. As a plague upon the innocent, the false comfort, false hope, and false peace over the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics was designed by nefarious intention. All peace without me at the center of it on planet football was false. The souls of all those who defied the odds and bet against the established Luciferian order all belonged to me. When push came to shove, everyone realized the place they were deep inside themselves. That was at the sound of the last trumpet out of the first single called The Divine Magic Mix by One Love Nation. There was a sudden twinkle in every eye. When people met me within the kingdom of the soul, they were raptured within the air of understanding. As individuals within the greater collective, everyone knew about the connection between me and themselves in a way that no one else could ever know. Everybody in the football world eventually knew who I was, because everybody within the twinkling of an eye at the sound of the last trumpet knew who they were. Nothing needed to be said within the realm where we were all psychic. When convenience dictated that they did not try, there were those foolish in heart who waited for salvation by association. I was wide awake from the 1950s. As I walked with my dad into our new home on Frederick Road in Aston in Birmingham, the world was clear to me. Although I was never a sudden event, by a great mystery, I always was. For uncounted ages I was a watcher of eyes, a reader of lips, and a perceiver of thoughts. The football world saw that without holiness it was impossible to see me. Within hearts that could not recognize the truth of themselves, the souls of the wicked rocked and trembled as my spirit filtered across the world. The establishment of a personal connection between the butterfly self and my everlasting grandfather was always a beautiful experience. Granddad's capabilities to communicate with everyone at the same time everywhere throughout all time left me looking as if I knew nothing about everything. I encouraged all to be touched by the breadth of their own understanding. Then they were told to lay down their minds and everything else as they realized who was there before they knew anything about him. There were those who believed the creation was not an exact science. When I was a child, my granddad explained it all to me by the soundless sound of his voiceless voice, which I always heard loud and clear. Whenever people did not believe it was him who told me all about the purpose and design of reality, then I smiled in secret and took full credit for the explanation. The sacred location of my anointment on Holy Trinity Road off the M6 at Junction 6 in Birmingham 6 is eternal proof of the divine power of the astonishing villa. The fallen world of pseudo-religious politics would not stop. It needed to be stopped. The Martians needed to be stopped. The devil needed to be stopped. The eternal words of power that are set at the event horizon can never be removed. Even now, how can they ever be contested by the combined intelligence of the scattered children of men? In the year 2000, the miracle of my second birth was witnessed and confirmed. The time came for me to stop speaking into the darkness, for the darkness could never understand itself. All those who heard the sound of the purity of my energy came out and away from the fallen world. The descent of peace has confirmed that the creation works one way, and it is beautiful forever. Those who stepped on the wrong side of the line once a line was drawn across my patience understood why I had the power to kill the devil. All had the choice to step outside of the actions deserved by their karma. I am the one who ensured all those who insisted on a taste of the second death received without pause exactly what their karma determined. Those who refused to be a part of eternal peace were destroyed within the lake of fire. Fair warning was given years before the year 2027. The lake of fire was the state I placed within the individual mind that the mind could never put out. My kingdom of eternal peace was always light years beyond the thoughts of bombs and bullets. I invited anyone to call me big-headed, and yet I'm saying my judgment over an unbelieving world was brilliant. Only those who did not want peace did not love it. As the year 2023 ended, the Archbishop said to the multi-ethnic, multicultural society of the great British public of many immigrants, "Trust in God who promises peace with justice." Any time the Archbishop mentioned anything to do with heaven before the year 2027, something inside me moved with prodigious energy. The only way to describe the psychological emotion within the divine spark of what I am was to use the words 7 seconds and a baseball bat. As 2023 drew to a close, I left football alone. Aston Villa beat Burnley 3-2 and were second in the table behind Liverpool. A wonderful New Year's Eve into New Year's Day was spent with musicians. Heidi, Charlie, Chris, Sadie, Carly, Arnie and me saw in the new year. On a night of entertaining ourselves, after karaoke, we swapped endless celebrity stories within our days of high entertainment of our past experiences in the music business. When the film of that night was made after the event horizon of human history had come and gone, people roared with uncontrollable laughter as they relived the scene at Heidi's house. Every single one of those stories was true. We had pictures as proof. As a New Year incentive all those years ago, I told my friends that I intended to become the quickest zero to billionaire there has ever been. What people heard at the pivotal moment of human history happened because I met Gil Scott-Heron at Ronnie Scott's on Broad Street in Birmingham. Gil gave me his autograph and permission to use his song "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." The Jam were one of my favourite bands. At John Henry's rehearsal studios in Islington, North London, Paul Weller came up to the place where I stood. He stood beside me and leaned at the bar in a way that came over as most comfortable. Paul looked at me as if he knew me. I looked at his stripy suit and thought, "Who are you looking at, as if you know me?" When I realised later that it was Paul, I was so ashamed of my thoughts within those moments. I should have introduced myself, or at least asked Paul why he looked at me for so long without saying anything. The Jam hailed from Woking. The large town in Surrey is known as the landing place, where when Martians shit up the place, in H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. To transport the same vibe as H.G. Wells, the celestial vehicle used in those days to shiz up the wicked in the music business was called 2 AM Jam. The words said to the Martians when religion as they had it had ended could have been said at any time I lived in the world. I spoke to Sadie and explained how time had magnitude and yet no direction. And yet, to break the barrier of time within the presence of an unprepared human mind served no purpose. Still, I prepared Sadie's mind for a future that was forever present. In the year 2027, when the gift of the present manifested across reality, Sadie understood the past with clarity. Human history revealed that I did not get mad, I did not get even, I got everything. And the representation of the image that put the dark angel Lucifer to bed was seen by everyone. The movie made of that time of my life closed when I said I had come to take over the planet. The words were true before the movie of those moments were put into production. That's because my big idea out of a childhood dream one morning was to use football and music to assume control of the planet. The blue sky was our silver screen as Carliani and me travelled around the country on our One Love Nation Rasta Flag for Peace tour. From the first day of 2020 until the step into the golden age, the transfer window between heaven and the world was opened. What I saw in the world in those days could not be explained by human words. Thankfully, the backing track to the subtext within my imagination of a pivotal scene with my grandfather above the highest heavens was written and performed by Crayola Lecton. The coda within endless potential explained all to all who had a feel for the harmonic pulse that classified and embraced everything. On New Year's Day, when my grandfather gave me permission to remain within divine power, with a glad heart, I mourned the passing of John Pilger. They said John brought the front line to front rooms. They said he waged a personal war against injustice. They gave him awards to keep him down when his work transcended the fallen world of pseudo-religious politics that sought to honor him to keep him down. From childhood, John was my hero. I loved the man more than my words could ever describe. In honor of his life, the man's voice and intentions were placed all over my esoteric work. A hero to me forever, John lives forever for what he did for me in the world. I loved John Pilger from 1968 when he reported on Biafra and shared his care for humanity. Carliani said over 2,000 years ago that she hoped we would meet the great man sometime. John was forever in my heart when I lived in the world, and I endeavoured to make his spirit proud that it connected with mine. Before my empirical existence became known to the sons of Adam, the daughters of Eve, and all the scattered children of men, Planet Football had never heard of me. And yet from the pivotal moment of human history, the event horizon will never be forgotten. I am a ruler of the football heavens. I am Lord Commander of the football universe. At the astonishing villa, I am known by many names. The secret name given to me by my grandfather is Ménager. Ages before time and eternity became active concepts, and long before Jewish history was written as scripture, out of the unfathomable depths of the unknowable, I am